You're on a GLP-1, but now you're wondering, how do I manage my side effects? What do I eat to stay strong? Because reaching your weight loss goals can take more than meds. That's where Weight Watchers Med Plus comes in. Get access to trusted experts, food plans that work with your body, and habit coaching to keep you on track. Plus access to GLP-1 medication. Get started at WeightWatchers.com. All medical services are provided through our affiliated medical group, Weight Watchers Clinic. Medications require eligibility and prescription. Individual results may vary. See site for more details.
Robots Radio. Games. Lore. Stories. Community. Just press play. Welcome to the Fallout Lorecast, the podcast that explores the boundaries of our knowledge about the world of Fallout. Wastelanders and Vault Dwellers, welcome back to the Fallout Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots, and you know, because I'm doing an intro like this, that I probably have something special in store for you. It's not just me this week, it's me and an old friend, somebody who has been on this show, but it's been a long time. Stuart,
hello.
Welcome to the show. You were on the episode that we did. I think it was a few months into the first year of this podcast where we talked about the media influences, the movies and TV shows and all the books and all the things that influenced Fallout from the very beginning. And I'm so excited to hang out with you again. For those of you who don't know, Stuart and I did the Dungeons and Dragons Lorecast, and then we passed that on to some other people who are currently still doing that. So if you're interested, go check that out. But Stuart is, he's basically an expert. He teaches classes or has taught classes. You've moved on to do some other things now, but for years you taught classes on media studies and all of these kinds of things. Stuart, it's so much fun to have you here and to get to hang out. It's been so long. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah. Thank you. It's awesome to be back and to be talking about Fallout and this TV series. Like Tom said, I'm a high school teacher and I've been teaching media studies for a while, which is all about getting really nerdy on TV and film and podcasts and games and all sorts of stuff. But there's a bit of a framework you can use when you're talking about those things, and we'll talk about a bit about that today. But it is very good to be back. It was your first year. I remember, I think I found the Fallout Lorecast at about episode 3 or 4. And I was like, I'm reaching out to this guy because I want to talk about Fallout with someone, because Fallout has been a part of my life since I was about 15. So
right, and it was a brand new little baby podcast. I had a few hundred listeners at the time. It was starting to really begin growing, and now, and before we get into the details about the Fallout TV show and some of your thoughts about the media and the development of the show and all of these kinds of things, just first of all, shout out to everybody who's tuning in. There are so many people who are excited about the Fallout TV show right now that this podcast, within a few days, became the #1 video game podcast on Apple Podcasts. There's a ranking system you can look up. And then yesterday, we topped #1 in the leisure category, which is the parent category that video games is in. This podcast became the #1 podcast in leisure. We were above Critical Role, which is mind-blowing. There's just tons of new listeners, so thank you for being here. I'm so glad that everybody's tuning in and excited about the lore of Fallout, because that's what Stuart and I are excited about. We love these games, and I'm so ready to just dive into this, because I finished up all 8 episodes. The last time I recorded about a week ago, I gave my first impressions of just the first 2 episodes on that first night when they dropped, and I had to whisper into the microphone. But I've watched all of it. I am over the moon. This series, this first season has been so good. But Stuart, I want to hear some of your perspectives. What did you think?
Oh, I loved it. So I'm actually only up to episode 6. I'm watching it with my wife, who's never played Fallout and doesn't know about Fallout, and she's really liking it as well, which I think is a testament to why it's successful. There are so many times while I'm watching this show that I am just like, yes, like I like seeing, what's an example? In the first episode, she uses a stim pack, and it looks like a stim pack, and it makes a sound as a stim pack.
Yeah, it's the same exact sound effect. I leaned over. My wife and I have been watching it together as well. She is a big fan of Fallout games. She plays them on her own. But I leaned over and I was like, that was the exact same sound from the games. And she was like, yeah. It was.
Yeah, man, it's so good. And, there's lots of there's lots of little bits. Like overall, like the story, I think the story is really good. I think they're nailing the tone of Fallout. You know, a mixture of sort of serious, in-depth character stuff and crazy, gory violence, bloody mess, as you would say, and just weird wasteland things.
Yeah,
like
weird stuff, dark humor,
weird stuff. Dark humor,
but also a lot of commentary, a little political and philosophical commentary that's just baked into the series from the very first game, and that's alive and well. They've hit the everything from every direction, and they've done it so well. You can clearly tell that the showrunners, the writers, have a very firm understanding of the franchise and what they've engaged with, and it's done so well. It's kind of hard to even talk about other than just going through each of the little details and discussing it.
Yeah, it is. One of the things that really stood out to me was, so I started playing Fallout with Fallout 1 when I was about 15. And Fallout 1 and 2 I still play fairly regularly. And, you know, I was playing Fallout 4 this morning. And how far that has come. So Tim Kaine, who was the lead designer on Fallout 1 at Interplay, has a YouTube series, and there are currently 64 videos that he has just talking about Fallout and all that. So if you want to go on a deep dive of where Fallout came from, I suggest checking that out. Yeah,
they are very entertaining. He's a very fun speaker because he's such an amicable guy, and he just tells it straight. He's just like, well, here's what I remember, here's what I don't remember, but somebody else remembers that differently. But you know, that's what happens after 20 years, you know, or whatever. You should go check out the series.
That's like. That he talks about that Interplay didn't want to give time or money to that project, so he offered people pizza after hours to come and talk about it, and that's how Fallout started. Was a group of people. And in his notes, he had a note. Didn't get as many as I thought. So, you know, so I think he was expecting like 12 or 15, and he maybe got 6 or something.
Yeah, it was a passion project from the beginning.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah.
And that's and now it is a internationally acclaimed TV series. You know, that's not that, and it doesn't feel like it's a sellout TV series. You know what I mean? Like,
no, it doesn't feel like they're pandering to an audience. In fact, there are some very odd things that happen in the series that if you didn't play the games, you wouldn't understand, and they don't explain it. The junk jet is the first example. I think I brought that up last week. You know, like somebody gets shot by a doll leg and keels over. And if you don't know what a junk jet is, you're like, what just happened? What? I don't understand. But that's a video game thing. And even just things like stim packs just all of a sudden working and fixing people. Like it just feels like magic. Well, it feels like a video game thing where, you know, you take the thing, you get more HP back. So it must have healed you somehow. Right. And they don't explain how or why that works the way it does. It just does. Because that's how the universe works.
Personally, I think that's good storytelling. Like Han Solo doing the Kessel Run in less than 13 parsecs. We don't know what the Kessel Run is. Right. And it's never explained. Like that's not in the first Star Wars film, that's not explained. And we're all okay with that. And I think that works well in a lot of the stuff in Fallout. And that is despite when we live in a world where at the moment everybody wants to know why and how, and they're just not buying into that. And it's really, really cool.
Yeah. And I think that's something we can discuss a little bit later, is just the audience response to this and people seeking answers to questions that they have and all of that. But before we get into that, I know you have some key concepts about media studies, things that we should probably be aware of when we're talking about a series like this in context of the things in the world that have influenced it and where it sits in 2024 compared to the rest of the media that's out there.
Yeah, sure. So with media studies, in the media studies that I teach, that there are other lenses that you can do media studies through. But the way I look at media studies is through the organizations who create media. And these can be whole companies or individuals, the audiences that consume, but then also impact media. And they're the two that we'll talk about today, I reckon. And then the other two are representation, so how ideas, places, and people are represented in media, and then codes and conventions. And codes and conventions I like to think of as codes being the Lego blocks, and conventions are the way you put those pieces of Lego together. So in film, for example, you have different shot angles, lighting, sound. Okay. Mm-hmm. All films have those things, but they're put together in a different way. And that's how we get different genres.
Right. Depending on the director or the kind of movie you're making, or who you expect this audience to be, or even where it's being delivered to, whether it's a movie theater or to watch home on your TV, something like that.
And that's what those conventions are. So the way I teach my students is that the codes are the actual the pieces and the parts and the skills, and the conventions are the way you put them together. And if you think about it like Lego, you can get a 3-in-1 Lego set that creates a car, a boat, and a plane, and they're all made from the same pieces. Okay?
Right. You just rearrange them. It's how you put them together that defines what they are. Okay.
So what's happening, I think, here is we have a really good synergy, a connection between organizations and audiences. Okay. It's working because those things are working together. When organizations, like people who make media, don't have a solid understanding of what audiences want, then they are likely to fail. I want to throw out a few examples here. The first one being the Doom movie from 2005.
With The Rock in it, yeah.
With The Rock in it, yeah. And Keith Urban, which I didn't, I haven't actually, like I went and saw that at the cinema in 2005 and never watched it again because it is awful and it is not really a Doom movie.
I never even watched it because the reviews were so scathing that I just didn't go see it. And then I never took any other opportunity to just watch it at home or anything. So and it's not like I last night when that came to mind, I had a bit of a look online at some of the clips, and it's not like they have the pinkies, the big pink monsters, and in that film they have wheels on their backs. Right.
And I'm like, why change the law? And that's not even law. Like they're demons. Like why have you done that? So when the organization doesn't understand what the audience wants, you're going to have a clash. And we've got some other examples. I haven't watched the Halo show, but what are your thoughts? Yeah,
I noted the Halo show. Again, I haven't watched it. I've seen some clips of it. I've seen the audience reception. One of the big complaints is things about how, if you play any of the Halo games, you're in your suit of armor all of the time. You are a non-talking protagonist. And so they decided we're going to make a TV show about a non-talking protagonist who's constantly has his face covered up. And they decide to completely throw most of that out. You have a speaking protagonist who they hamstring in reasons why his suit just doesn't happen to be available at the time in order to make him more vulnerable. And you can see his facial expressions, which is particularly strange to me, especially on the heels of The Mandalorian, where you have a TV show with a protagonist whose face is covered 99% of that show. I mean, there are very, very few moments where you actually get to see his face.
One or two episodes.
Yeah, there's like one or two. And then on top of that, he doesn't talk very much. Like, you didn't need to make him chatty, but you could have just made him say the bare minimum and then had the characters around him support the exposition or whatever the way they do in The Mandalorian. And it totally worked. And they even had that as an example before Halo was even released. And yet the show was released. And then, they didn't go that direction, which is confusing.
That's exactly what I mean. So the law is that Master Chief has his helmet on. He is an absolute ass kicker and he always wins.
Right.
So instead of making him the protagonist, you just make someone normal the protagonist.
Sure.
And then Master Chief is in there at top, there
are other ways to do it. And then we also
have mentioned the 90s Mario film.
Right. Which they've corrected because the most recent Mario film was wonderful. It was so really good. Yeah. It was so good. Not only is the writing good, the voice acting is fun, but they just made it look like the games. Mario looks like Mario. The princess looks like the princess. The Toad people are freaking Toad people. There are Yoshis, everything. It's very colorful. Even the bad guys are very much like they are. And they expanded a little bit with personality from like Jack Black playing as Bowser. And so Bowser comes across a little more goofy, but he was always kind of a goofy villain, right? Like he keeps losing, but he keeps coming back trying to get the princess again or whatever. So it totally works. Whereas the 90s Mario movie was like,
what is that?
They decided they would just take the games as like a suggestion and then build something else out completely with these weird looking Goomba humans. And I don't know. The whole thing is just kind of a mess. If you really want to go back and watch it, go check it out. You'll be. My
suggestion is you don't watch that on your own. You get a group of friends together and laugh at how bad it is, because it is very bad.
Right.
However, when was that? Early 90s? I must have been 8.
Yeah,
I liked it as a 90,
93 or something, 92, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, audiences are not just consumers. Okay. Audiences have a really active role in an IP. Look at Fallout at the moment. Like Fallout exists because its fans keep coming back to it. Okay, they love it and they're involved. Yeah, there's clear signs of that in some cinema. One of the things I do in media studies is we look at cult films and we look at how audiences interact with a piece of media and how they change that piece of media. A really good example of that is the Rocky Horror Picture Show. If you've ever been to a midnight screening of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, there is a audience script now, an official audience script that the audience yells out at the screen at one of those shows. So that's an indication of like the importance that a audience has on a static piece of media. Yeah. And this is something to note here. Obviously, you and I live on separate halves of the world. I'm here in the United States, you're over in Australia, and yet that is clearly a worldwide phenomenon, because it happens where you live, it happens where I live, it happens everywhere. It has taken on a life of its own because of the fan base. And in fact, the movie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the movie originally did okay. And then over the years, it was a flop. Yeah. It was the midnight screenings that made it a thing. Oh, it was even a flop. It didn't even do okay. It was just bad. It did poorly. It was not. And because it was a musical first. So it was like a stage show first, and they made the film out of it. Didn't do very well. And then through midnight screenings, it started getting its fame or creating that niche cult following. Yeah. Or The Big Lebowski is another example. Like the movie. Exactly. The movie didn't do great, but it's on everybody's list of top movies, if you like cult classic kind of films. It's one of those films that you need to watch a number of times to really get the hang of. And now that there's a religion, dudism that someone has made. Yeah, man. Yeah. Right? You can I think it's the Church of the Latter-day Dude. And you can become a dudist. That's great. So that's the importance of audiences and organizations. And organizations, when they understand their audience, works really well. Which brings us to the organizations involved in this show, which is Amazon, MGM, Kilter Films. And I did notice that Big Indie Pictures is mentioned, but I'm not too sure what their involvement is. Okay. But essentially, our main producers and creators are Todd Howard, Jonathan Nolan. And then we have Graham Wagner and Geneva Roberts Dwart, maybe. Yeah, sorry, pronunciations can be tough, but yeah. So those are kind of the main people behind it, because you have clearly Todd Howard from Bethesda, right, bringing his stamp of approval and probably requirements and things like that, as he's talked about, like how they wanted to set up the film, how they wanted to feel like a new story, just like launching a new Fallout game, that kind of thing. And then Jonathan Nolan, who's talked about how he fell in love with the franchise back in Fallout 3 when he put hundreds of hours into Fallout 3 and just kind of fell in love with it. And then the writers, Graham and Geneva, who I've watched do some interviews as well, and they clearly get it. They, even on those interviews, they clearly get it. They've both have different favorite Fallout games. They've played through, watched clips of the other ones that they haven't played. They've done their research, and it shows. I think I just want to highlight the fact Jonathan Nolan playing Fallout 3 at the same time that he's working on like the Dark Knight series is amazing to me. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So cool. He's like, sorry, I haven't got those pages done. I'm stuck in what's that town? Megaton. I haven't nuked Megaton yet. So yeah. Let me just finish this side quest. I'll get back to writing the Joker dialogue. Don't worry. Yeah, I love that. And so, like you said, they purposely chose to create an original story. That most of the Fallout games exist in isolation. I think the only The major ones are Fallout 1, 2, and New Vegas are all sort of on the West Coast and all have a connection to NCR in some way.
Yeah, I believe 1 and 2 are the only ones that actually revisit any locations specifically.
Yeah,
New Vegas references locations, but it's further east because it's in Nevada primarily, little parts of like Eastern California there also. But yeah, I think 1 and 2 are the only ones that actually revisit any specific locations. Other than that, every single one of them is in a different location. And they all reference each other. There are cross references. Like there are references from Fallout 4 back to Fallout 3 and characters that, in fact, I believe there's 2 characters in Fallout 4 that were also in 3, just off the top of my head. But like you're saying, they are all independent. Like you can play any single one of them independently from the others, and they all stand alone. Yep. They all work on their own. They have their own story arcs, their own main characters, their own villains. Some of the factions show back up from game to game, but others factions are absolutely brand new. There's new vaults every single time. So yeah, and the movie follows through with that.
Yeah, that's right. And the cool thing is that world exists and the rules of that world are set up. And so it gives the creators a playground that has a defined setting and a defined play space, but they also have freedom to play with it how they want to without having to get too tied up. Like, let's say, for example, they were like, cool, we're going to make Fallout 1 the movie. All right. Yeah. The problem that is there is that my Fallout 1 and how I played that is completely different to how anyone else would play that because it's a role-playing game. And, you can be an awful person in Fallout games, or you can be, a lovely person in Fallout games.
Right. And because you've probably gone back and played Fallout 1 many times, no 2 playthroughs are identical for just let alone anybody else.
Yeah, spot on. I used to be a part of internet forums where everyone was trying to finish Fallout 2 in the most very different ways. That's showing my age. That must have been about 2000, I reckon.
Yeah. Good old, now it's all just Reddit.
Now it's all just Reddit. Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that Jonathan Nolan and Todd Howard spoke about was choosing to make sets and to go places instead of using CGI for everything. Mm-hmm. There is obviously still CGI, but it is not on a scale that makes it difficult to consume. Like quite often now, CGI will be used to make it easier, I suppose. But I don't know if it's cheaper, and quite often it looks awful.
Right.
Or at least doesn't have gravity to it, whereas this feels real and granular.
Right. There is one of my favorite channels on YouTube is the Corridor Crew. If you haven't watched Corridor Crew videos, they break down the special effects in movies. Every week they've got a new episode where they break down special effects in movies. Sometimes they have guests who have actually done the CG or the animations or whatever on different shows, different movies. They are phenomenal. They're a wonderful group, and they make their own videos too. They did like a Portal video where they were playing basketball using portals, like from the Portal games. They've done all sorts of fun stuff. But one of the things that they talk about is, well, actually, there's 2 things I want to point out. First of all, the good CGI is not, or I'm sorry, what's the way that it's phrased? Good CGI is just invisible CGI. Every movie has some level of CGI in it. Even if it's just color grading, there's some level of CGI. It's when you notice it that it takes you out of the moment. So good CGI is just simply invisible. And many of the directors, many of the people in the interviews will talk about how, we did it like 99% practical effects and blah, 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 blah. Even though if you actually go look at the behind the scenes stuff, it shows you all the CGI they did. But because that works for the audience and makes the audience feel like they're going to get a more authentic thing. And if the CGI is done well, you still can't tell it's there. So they get away with saying like, there's not very much CGI in this at all because it's a marketing thing, right? That's just how that works. And the other thing that they really, really push is that the best special effects currently in 2024 are the combination of practical effects and CGI working together. Like, for example, Mr. Handy in the show. He is a practical character. He is a puppet. and there's somebody puppeting him, moving all the little eyes, moving all his little arms, the buzzsaw, all those little parts. But there's a sheen of CGI on it that is, and I'm just guessing here, it's probably a sheen of CGI on him that is almost invisible. You don't notice it because he comes across like a very real thing in a room, and that plays to the benefit of the actors in the scene, of we as the viewers knowing that like, oh, a physical thing would have to move in physical space in a certain way. And so it comes across subconsciously more real because the bones of it are real, and that just works. It works so much better.
Yeah. It's really interesting. So 20 years ago, 30 years ago, Jurassic Park came out.
Yeah, almost
Jurassic
30 years
Park,
ago. Was it 96, 97, something like that?
No, I think it was 94.
Was it 94? Oh, man, it was earlier. No, yeah, I was in high school at the time. Oh, my God.
And that was a mixture of real effects and CGI.
Yeah.
And when you go and watch that film now, to all the young people listening, if you haven't seen the original Jurassic Park, go and see it. It's not just, I'm not just being an old man and saying the old stuff's good. It is genuinely a good film. A lot of my students who are like, I'm not watching that, will watch that one and agree with me. So
right. Yeah. You watch that one and then you watch like the third or fourth one, and significant differences, even though technology advanced.
The second one, like the second Jurassic Park, leaned so heavily into CGI, and it was too early for CGI.
Right. Like
there was that peak, but there's that spot between sort of like 95 and I don't know 2002 or
like
3,
the Matrix,
where CGI. Yeah. Matrix worked.
Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, and
Spawn didn't work.
Spawn did not work. But yeah, once you get to like 2000, 2001, with movies like The Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, and there was another one that popped in my head that just fell out of my head again.
See, Lord of the Rings is another example of using real sets, real costumes, and then using CGI to support it, as opposed to be all of it.
Which is why it works better than The Hobbit.
Yeah.
It's the same reason. Yeah.
And Star Wars films, like
that was it. That was the other one, Star Wars.
Yeah, like the difference between the prequels and the modern new Star Wars films, especially The Force Awakens, is that they made things, and they used real effects to do that. So that's something that really sticks out there. So also with the organizations and these creators, is they're leaning on an existing world, and I suppose we should touch a little bit on how that existing world came about and what the influences there were.
Yeah, let's revisit a little bit of that, because I think it'll be interesting, especially because we're no longer talking about influences on like Fallout 1 or Fallout 2. We're talking about influences on a TV show in 2024, not a game series designed almost 30 years ago now, 25 years ago.
It's interesting because they've really, like, there is not much in the TV show when I watch it that doesn't look like it's come straight out of one of the modern games. You know what I mean? Like the shots of the vault, the shots of the vaults, especially in the first couple of episodes in Vault 33, they just look like shots of a vault. Like that's really, like, it's really amazing how well they've put that together.
Yeah. Did you get goosebumps? I got goosebumps.
Yeah. And like the 5 paladins marching.
Oh my God. The power armor, the way that the power armor, every time somebody was in a scene with somebody in power armor, it made the person who was in the power armor feel so imposing. Yeah. So big, so strong, and you couldn't see their face. Their voices were muffled through the thing. Like it was like super. It was way more imposing than it comes across in the games. But I think that was good, because there's something about when you're in a game, you know where the boundaries are. You know, if you die, you just reload your save. You know, if you fight something you can't take on, you try to run away, and you just stab yourself with as many stim packs and eat as much food as you can to get your health back, and then you're fine, right? And then you just move on with your quest. But in a TV show or in real life, there's that feeling of like, I know what it's like to be standing next to a really big human being who is angry. Now imagine that person's covered in metal, holy crap. Like the way and the fact that they could just walk around, they just moved, and they were still a little stilted. There's certain movements they couldn't do, which they played into in the story. But this idea of like these suits were actual suits and they just worked. They totally
so
just
good.
worked.
Yeah, they're brilliant. I just thought that completely nailed that like so well. And like I won't. I know we've got a bit spoilery, but I won't. There's a certain scene where he can't get to someone and he's sort of turning around and accidentally steps on him. And I'm like,
right.
That is so good. That is so good.
Right. Yeah. Oh, by the way, they're going to be spoilers. I think that should be. I mean, it is a lore podcast. There are spoilers. So just so you know.
We are. Yeah, we're gonna spoil it for you, but hopefully you've watched quite a bit of it already, and we're not spoiling that much. Interestingly, the idea of the Brotherhood comes from a book called "The Canticle of Leibowitz," which is a post-apocalyptic book about this like religious order that goes and finds relics from the past and collects them. I've read half of it now, and it's pretty strange, but it's really good, especially if you're into post-apocalyptic media, which I'm sure a lot of the listeners are. But there are a lot of films that influence this, and you can see it throughout, I think. So like obviously Mad Max and Mad Max 2, which is called, I think it was called Road Warrior in America.
Yes. I believe so.
Real effects, like, so those first two films were all used real effects for that. That's the proper wasteland, that's the desolate wasteland.
It's basically what Australia is like for real, right?
Yeah. Well, it was just filmed in Broken Hill. Yeah. So that's kind of what it looks like. Interesting though, they were going to go back there and film Fury Road, and they had unseasonable downpour of rain. And when they rocked up the film, it was like this lush green valley. Oh, no. And they're like, well, we can't film here. So they filmed in Africa, I think.
Wow.
Somewhere, a country in Africa. So other influences include, like there's a lot of books. Tim Kaine talks about like reading all of the Hugo award-winning novels with another creator, or trying to get through them all. And so he's like, there's a lot of influence there that I don't know exactly what has influenced us, but I'm sure it has. Mm-hmm. Not heaps of 1950s films like Them, which is about giant ants. There's also an 80s film called Damnation Alley, which has giant scorpions. If you want to have a laugh, please look up Damnation Alley's giant scorpions on YouTube and watch the scene with the giant scorpions, because it's also using real effects, but my golly.
It's like 80s real effects. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really not,
right.
It's really not good. There's a TV series which I haven't heard of, which is The Day After, which I'm really interested in checking out. I believe that's also from the 80s, and it's essentially about just after a nuclear attack. And then also A Boy and His Dog.
Yeah.
A Boy and His Dog is, and is also referenced directly in the show in episode 6.
Yeah.
There's a man and his dog is a big poster that says A Man and His Dog.
Right. It's one of the films Cooper Howard was on. So so he was the star. It was a Western called A Man and His Dog, and he was the star of that movie. It may also be the movie that gets referenced when we see him delivering the lines and he has problems with some of the lines. That gets referenced. I think that might be the same film, but I'm not sure. There's a number of his films that you could see named at different parts. I'd have to go back and look at it to be sure. If you're listening right now and you know which film that was that he was working on that we saw the scene of him filming, let me know, because then I won't have to look it up. But yeah, man, I noticed that too. The big poster, A Man and His Dog, and I was like, so they must know.
Yeah, it's cool. Also, Forbidden Planet, which is a 1960s,
I think that was 60s
TV film.
Yeah,
and that's where the robot. What are those robots called again, Tom?
Protectrons. They're like some of the robots on that look similar to Protectrons.
Yeah. That Robbie the robot on there is where they get that idea from, for the robot, and a lot of the retro futuristic stuff comes out of that sort of film as well, or that film exactly. And I think, I don't know if this is true, but like the color schemes, like when I've watched Forbidden Planet, the vaults and some of the other high tech stuff feel like that film.
There's a certain, what's the best way to say it? The blue and the yellow, the
Yeah.
There's the soft colors, like the soft pinks, and there's a word for that. They're like soft color tones. That all kind of harkens back to that, I think.
Yeah, spot on. And I think there's also reference to like other video games, like Fallout 1 was initially going to be a GURPS. A GURPS game, and they even had a contract to do that. Like they'd met with them and had a contract. Gamma World, which was TSR, the people that make D&D, that was their post-apocalyptic world or game, which is really, really strange. And if you want to check out some really crazy mutations, grab a copy of that. You can get it from Drive-Thru RPG, I reckon, for not much, digital copy of it. As well as video games like Wasteland, which Tim Kaine is interesting in that he says that it's not meant to be a sequel of that, even though some people will say that. I've
heard some people argue, well, Fallout's just a sequel to Wasteland, and it's kind of a spiritual sequel in some ways. Yeah. But I don't know that it's
NCR Rangers for sure. And it's a wasteland, and there's a person going out there and doing stuff. So definitely an influence, but not a sequel. And the other thing that I thought was interesting was XCOM, and which I guess is where you get the turn-based combat from, and then Crusader, which was for people old enough will remember Crusader as a isometric shoot 'em up, basically, that had a kind of looked like a stormtrooper in a red outfit. So I'm just rambling about things that are influences. Maybe we'll take a break and we'll come back and chat about a little bit more about what the writers and creators had to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And before we take the mid break, I just want to say I've had a number of conversations with people on our Discord and some other locations, and people there's a lot of really fun brainstorming going on where people are trying to draw connections between influences and the way the series works, or parallels to world events and religious stuff. And I think that's really cool. And I think one of the things that Tim has really helped me understand is that with so much of this stuff, for every time you can go, oh yeah, a boy and his dog, and there's a direct connection there to dog meat and yada, 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 there's probably half a dozen other things that were subconsciously influencing what they were doing without them even realizing it at the time. And then you go back and look and go, oh yeah, this is kind of like this other thing. This was kind of like a game I played a few years before we started working on this, or a movie that I loved when I was a kid, or whatever. And you can see how I think that's just the nature of the way creativity works, is that we just we build this library of experience in our minds, and then subconsciously we just pull from that library when we make something new, and we may not even remember the reference, but it's in there. So
there's a really good YouTube video called Everything's a Remix. Yeah. And it's awesome. It talks exactly about that.
Yeah. So cool stuff. All right, we got to go take a break. We have to welcome our new patrons, so don't go anywhere. It's time for that spring reset. I'm taking a look at everything in my closet and figuring out that, oh no, this absolutely needs to go. And it's about time I replace things so that my clothes aren't older than my 15-year-old. Now you might think that they lasted that long because they were well made, but no, they're in terrible condition. Unlike the new jeans I just got from Quince. Jeans have always been my personal go-to because you can kind of wear them for lots of different things, but maybe they're not your thing. Maybe you're looking for, 100% European linen with insanely soft flow knit activewear fabric. It's definitely getting warmer, and their flow knit activewear is moisture wicking, anti-odor, and soft enough that you'll actually want to wear it every day. So pick out what you want. You can't go wrong because they have prices 50 to 60% less than similar brands. And like I said before, they are high quality. I continue to wear their clothes all the time, and I know that these new jeans are going to last me a lot better than the other things in my wardrobe. And on top of it, they look great. They're so comfortable, and I spent just as much on the jeans that I am now cleaning out of my wardrobe. So if you're looking for something better, just all around better, go check out Quince. So go do it right now. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/falloutlore for free shipping and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. Go to quince.com/falloutlore for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/falloutlore.
The new Wegovy pill is now available through Weight Watchers. Powerful GLP-1 results in a simple pill at the lowest price available. And with Weight Watchers, you can get doctor support and personalized nutrition programs. See if you qualify at weightwatchers.com. Ad not reviewed or approved by Novo Nordisk.
Hello there, old chap. Good to see another of General Atomic's finest, still eager to serve.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show, and I have to welcome our newest members of the Patreon, patreon.com/Fallout Lorecast. If you want to get in on this, if you want to get ad-free episodes, if you're binging a bunch of the episodes, that's a great way to do it. If you want to get t-shirts and stickers and things like that. But we have a bunch of new people who've been checking out the show. So we have a bunch of new people on the Patreon. Welcome, Dustfin, Joe W, Joseph, Cody V, Haley E, Destin, Pluto M. I'm not sure if that's an actual name or if that's a pseudonym or whatever, but we'll just go with that just to be careful. And Nolan C, welcome to the Patreon. I'm so glad that you are all here. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope you are enjoying all the things you're getting over there. Also, we have to shout out our SentryBot tier members who get shout outs every week. Germinator and Pluto, our newest member, also a SentryBot. So you're going to get shout outs every week. So thanks for being here, everybody. Thank you for supporting the show. And also, if you'd like to help in other ways, you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I will read out your words on a future episode of the show. So that's a great way to get your words on the show directly. Also, you can rate the show on Spotify. 5 stars on Spotify helps a ton. You can share it with your friends. If you have been binge watching this series and you have friends or family that are like, I don't get it. How does this work? Or where did the Brotherhead come from? Or what's the deal with Vault-Tec? Well, guess what? There's almost 300 episodes of the show that answers a lot of those questions. So go check that stuff out and please share it with them. Thank you so much for the support. I can't do this on my own. And it's because of all of you that I've been able to make this into a career. And I do a bunch of other shows and run an entire network with Robots Radio, with my shows and a bunch of other shows. So go check everything out. Thanks for being here. All right, let's move on with the conversation.
If you have any questions about Nuka World, I'd be delighted to answer them.
All right, Stuart. So let's talk about the writers, the two main writers. We have Geneva and Graham. Geneva Robertson Dworit, hopefully we're pronouncing that correctly, and Graham Wagner. I mentioned earlier, I got to see an interview with them, and they seem like they're very, very aware. They seemed like very smart people who understood the task of what they were doing, but also understood why Fallout is so engaging and so potent for creating a story like this.
They have a really interesting background. So Graham Wagner was the lead writer on Portlandia. And The Office, or one of the writers on The Office.
I pulled up the IMDb. The Life and Times of Tim, and then The Office. He did 23 episodes for The Office. Mulaney, Baskets, Portlandia, Silicon Valley, and then Fallout. And then, of course, there's some other. He was producer on those, and then writer and actor on a number of other things. And Geneva wrote the Tomb Raider screenplay. Also Captain Marvel. I know that's not one of everybody's favorite Marvel movies, but I didn't think it was bad. I think, in fact, a lot of people just had problems with, there's a certain contingency of people out there on the internet who are like, female lead character, gotta crap all over this. And those people can just go, I don't know, fall in a ditch somewhere. But then also a number of other things, and is upcoming writer for a number of things like Gotham City Sirens, The Mask, Mobile Armored Strike Command, which I think is a callback to the 80s. Toys?
It's that cartoon. That's that cartoon.
The cartoon?
Put the mask on and drive the cars, yeah.
That's awesome. And a number of other things, including Bambi. So, very interesting people with different backgrounds from writing different things. And that stuff shows, I think, like the humor in the series is definitely Fallout humor, and that it's some of it's really dry, some of it's really dark, some of it's sort of laugh out loud funny, some of it's a little bit shocking, which is kind of fun because
and even the gore is sometimes a bit funny. Like it's whilst it's gory, it's not a horror.
It feels like video game violence. Like there's a scene early on, it was the first, second episode, where the ghoul is, tracking the guy, right? And he ends up in the middle of town, and of course everybody's gunning for him. And I could have sworn, my wife actually says, "Oh, so he has VATS." because he goes from like one person to the next, pow, pow, blam, blows up a guy's arm, and someone else's head explodes, whatever. And it felt like he was playing the game, and he just happened to be, have high perception or whatever, and just like lined up all his shots and boom, 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 boom. But it didn't come across, it was violent to the point of almost being humorous.
Yeah. Yep.
It was comedic. It was like, there's so much blood right here that there's not even that much blood in a human body, but somehow that just all flew out of a guy's head. It's
yeah. They totally nailed it. That's the tone is all right. And just on that, like that's like this, I thought that was funny that you just said that that's like that, because there's so much I've noticed that seems gamey, and I love it. For example, when we first meet Lucy in the first episode, she is describing her skills, what she's good at. And then throughout the show, she relies on her speech and her science and her repair skills. And I just thought that was great. I was like, that's how you do a character sheet without doing a character sheet.
Right.
You have them applying for a job and explaining their skills, because that's what your character sheet is. It's your curriculum vitae.
Right. And some of the other characters too. I saw somebody post this wonderful post on Reddit where they took some of the perks, I believe, from Fallout 1 or Fallout 2, and I'm not sure exactly which one it was. And then they photoshopped the head of the character who matched the perk. So like small frame, her Lucy's little brother is like a tiny little guy, right? And so he has the small frame perk. Or like Maximus, idiot savant. Like, he's not a smart guy. He's definitely not educated. He grew up in the wasteland. He doesn't even know when the bombs originally dropped, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But he just kind of stumbles around and ends up in these lucky situations. Totally an idiot savant kind of character.
Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like, so there's a Rolling Stones interview with Geneva and Graham. And I'm just going to read the question and the responses from the two, because I think it ties really well to this. So, what was the toughest writing challenge when cracking this? And Geneva's response is nailing that tone that we were discussing. We locked in on an idea of 3 central characters very early. We're really drawn to the Vault Dweller, a member of the Brotherhood, and a ghoul. We were very inspired, not just by the good, the bad, and the ugly, but by a specific interpretation of the good, the bad, and the ugly that Graham has. And then Graham responds, "It's my interpretation, and I know it's wrong, but it's the idea if the same cowboy has been in the Wild West, then the longer they're out there, that they start as Clint Eastwood's character, who is called Blondie, and you end up as Eli Wallach's character, which is Tuco, the
villain, right?
The villain, yeah. He's the ugly. That's sort of our view of Lucy, Max, and the ghoul. The worldview, their worldview and ethical compass gets damaged by the amount of time they spend out in the wasteland, which I think is an excellent way of describing a Fallout game. So the longer depending on what your character does out in the world, it changes who they are and impacts the choices you make. I don't know about you, but I know that if I start making negative choices in a Fallout game, I sort of continue down that path, and occasionally I'll step out of it and do what is good. But if I start a game and I'm trying to do the good thing the whole way, I sort of try to do that as best I can. But in all Fallout games, there are situations where there is not a positive outcome. There is always going to be a negative outcome.
Right.
And I think that they are doing a really good job of that with Lucy's character, who is slowly figuring out that for her to survive up there, she has to behave like the people who are from up there.
Right. She at least has to make certain kinds of exceptions. She really does try to stick to it. But then she even sees the irony of some of her decisions, which I won't spoil. But there are some lines she says that come back and hit you differently once you get through the last episode, which I won't spoil for you. But yeah, you can see that she's still trying to stick to that, and there are benefits. This is one of those moral or ethical dilemmas, is that so many things are either short-term benefits or long-term benefits. And oftentimes the evil thing to do, or the darker thing to do, gives you short-term benefits, but you are sacrificing long-term benefits for the short-term gain. And the morally correct thing, the good thing to do, generally sacrifices short-term gain for the long-term benefits. So, for example, maintaining telling the truth with people you care about gains you long-term benefits because they learn to trust you, you build a relationship over time, and that pays out in the long run. But you could just lie to them right now in order to manipulate a situation and get something out of them. But now you're sacrificing the long-term benefits, right? And you can see this play out in the show. There are often times where characters make the short-term decision, which gets them what they need right in the moment, but it doesn't set them up to be better off in the long term. And there are some decisions that Lucy makes where she sticks to her guns, metaphorical guns, not necessarily literal guns, although that does come up. And she sticks to a certain moral decision-making, and that actually works out better for her in the long run, whether she notices it or not. And I think that is very astute because although that doesn't track 100% of the time, I think in general, that's the nature of morality, is that oftentimes the evil person, and it shows up in TV shows and movies and stories all the time, the people who are the bad guys are the ones who sacrifice long-term gain for short-term gain, and eventually that shoots them in the foot. So it's interesting.
So I know Fallout 1 and 2 the most because I played them the most. If you play a villainous character in Fallout 2, you get more guns, you get more caps, but you get less XP. So you gain more XP for negotiation than you do for killing. So that is a gamified example of short-term goals. Right.
Fallout 3 would be an example. You mentioned Megaton, and the idea of if you follow through with the quest line to blow up Megaton, you get the rewards that gives you right in that moment because you succeeded in that mission and whatever. But you also destroy the ability to do multiple quest lines from Megaton, and all of those characters not all of them, but most of them no longer exist. And you've completely cut out an entire section of the game. So in a way, you've kind of screwed yourself in regards to that.
Spot on.
Yeah.
I think this collection of creators who've got this huge wealth of experience, which also includes Westworld, which started really strong and sort of petered out. And I think that the creators there have learned from that. Portlandia, The Office, Captain Marvel, Silicon Valley, Interstellar, and the Dark Knight series. You've got these creators that have a huge amount of experience as well as a world that they can play in. And then you have Todd Howard, who obviously is fully across Fallout things, but also understands the audience. And that's where we can move on to audiences, because I do think that they have done audiences good here. I think that for a vast majority of Fallout fans, they're really happy with this TV series, and this show wouldn't exist without them.
That's true. Yeah. And
it's like, sorry, you go.
I was going to say it is an amazing fan base that maybe it's a testament to the way the games have been designed, but also the fan base that so many people will stick around and replay the games and constantly be there and are ready for whatever the next thing is, and debate endlessly on the internet about the lore or which was the best game or who their favorite characters were. There are so many people who will put Fallout in their bio description on social media sites.
Yeah.
Like they define themselves as Fallout fans first and foremost, among the other things. I also like sports, and I do this for a living, also Fallout. It's in there among like all of their favorite things. And there's got to be a reason for that, right? And so knowing that, going into creating a TV series like this, knowing that that's the kind of fan base you have. I mean, this is the kind of fan base that rivals stuff like Star Wars.
That's exactly where my head was going. So with Star Wars, they have this issue essentially of having generational fans. So like people of my age and older who are really keen on the original films and not much else. And then you've got kids that, or kids.
Well, the millennials, you have the millennial generation that grew up with the prequel trilogy, and to them, those are the greatest Star Wars movies.
And then my friends' kids love the new one. Like there's, and they love the TV shows. So Star Wars has that, and Fallout has that to a certain extent as well. It's been around for 25 years now. There are people who played Fallout 1 and that was it, and that's what they like. And then there are people that a lot more people that started with Fallout 3 and have never gone back. I know a guy whose favorite Fallout is Fallout Tactics. Why?
What?
I don't know. I don't know. But he loves Fallout Tactics, still plays it today, which is great for him. So it has a wide spanning community, and I think that especially in the early, I haven't finished the last 2 episodes, but I feel as if it is hitting a lot of those groups really well. Like it's getting their attention quite well. Yeah. They have a lot of hard choices to make.
Right. The biggest point that most people are arguing currently is how much of the lore has been changed or redacted because of the show. And to the show's credit, it's only a very small amount of actual debate. I mean, you have a date on a chalkboard, which puts into question the existence of Shady Sands before or after the events of Fallout New Vegas. And there are people who come from different sides on that argument. Some people are like, well, no, it obviously retcons it because in New Vegas, there is reference to Shady Sands. There are characters who say they're communicating back to the government at Shady Sands, even though New Vegas happens 4 years after the event, the date on the chalkboard. The chalkboard says 2277, and the events of New Vegas are 2281. So did they accidentally put the wrong date on the chalkboard? Was that just a goof? Does the date actually mean the decline of Shady Sands begins around 2077 or 2277, and then the arrow to the bomb means a few years later is when the bomb got dropped on it? So like there are different ways to interpret this, and a lot of people are kind of debating this. On the furthest extreme, you have people who are just totally against Bethesda already anyway, who are saying things like, oh, well, that's just because Bethesda hates the original developers and Obsidian and all of that, which is absolutely not true. They've denied that at every turn. Even Tim Kaine has talked about how, no, he loves the Bethesda games. Even the people, still at Obsidian, the people who worked on New Vegas have said, no, there's no beef. We're totally cool. We love the series as well, and so people are debating this stuff. And one of the patterns I think people should be aware of is that this happens over and over and over again, especially in TV media, when you get a franchise, a new show that is made off of some existing franchise, and a season happens and leaves questions, which happens in any type of media, whether it's a movie, a novel, a TV show. You can't answer every question, and sometimes you leave specific things unanswered in order to answer them in the next chapter or whatever. And so people start debating stuff, and some people get all up in arms about it. And then the next season rolls out and they clarify it. And they simply clarify something that people are up in arms about. The first, I'm sure the first season of Game of Thrones, although it was very, very close to the books, they changed certain things. And then I'm sure people were like, oh, well, how are they going to deal with this? And then in the second season, something else popped up and they're like, oh, well, that explains the little hole that they didn't explain in the first season. Now that series does fall apart by like the 5th or 6th season, but the first half of it, a little bit more, did pretty good. But my point here isn't whether those things were accurate or not. My point is that there's a pattern that emerges where people jump all over the lack of knowing the answer to something right away. And some percentage of them speculate on that it's just terrible. There's no good answer. There's no way they can answer this, because they just don't happen to have the answer in front of them. They don't have the creativity to come up with whatever the answer might have been. And in a time period where you have like years of things that could have happened, as somebody who is creative myself and does my own things, I can come up with a dozen different answers as to why that may or may not have played out exactly like we think it did. Like, what if the people in the vault didn't have the right date? What if they were misinformed?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly where my brain was going. What if their feet, like they're a, sorry, I'm not going to release any information there, but those people might have an agenda that they are working towards.
What if they have an agenda? Right. What if they are purposely misleading people with a wrong date in their education system? That's never happened before. Look at reality. How many times have we misinformed people in education systems about dates and events and reframed them in ways that were beneficial to the people teaching the lesson, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There are so many different ways you can explain this without having to get up in arms, that you can just wait and find out how they explain it and if they do or not. Anyway.
Sorry, I'm just going to get Fallout nerdy for a second. What year is the Fallout TV series set?
218 after the bombs dropped, 2296. 2296.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious.
I have another suggested answer for why the date on the chalkboard says 2277, because that's exactly 200 years after the original bombs dropped. And it's a wonderful parallel to say bombs dropped 200 years ago, bombs dropped on this date 200 years later. It's a very round number. It also seems like the kind of thing that if you don't really worry about the exact specifics of dates, that it's just easy to teach children so they remember 200 years later, another bomb dropped.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's right.
I don't know. I don't know that holds a lot of weight, but it's interesting that date is exactly 200 years since the Great War.
So I think what's really important here is that compared to the 90s Super Mario Brothers film, what these creators have done is bring Fallout to life in a live action TV series that looks real-ish. As far as TV goes, it looks good, and they've stuck to the lore for the most part. I think. Just imagine if they had made all the Vault jumpsuits pristine white,
right? You just picked a different color.
Instead of ghouls, there was skeletons,
right?
Or they had coins instead of caps. Or if the stim pack was actually something completely different and didn't look exactly like a stim pack. That is the sort of butchery that happened to IP in the past. And I think that what they have done here is really quite phenomenal, because I did not have high hopes for this show, because I've been scorned in the past with all sorts of things. What about the Resident Evil movies, man?
Why some of those changes?
Why?
The Resident Evil is wacky enough on its own. You don't need to be changing stuff for no reason. And you know what I think it is on some level? I think it's just easier. It's just easier if you don't have to be constrained by the stuff that was already there. So you can just write your own story.
And quite often producers don't have an understanding of what they're making or what's good. I think an excellent story about a production company or a producer making, or a TV network in this case, making a decision that ruins something is the TV show Firefly, which bombed which is a fantastic TV show. It's a bit dated now, but fantastic TV show. But when that aired, the creators went and said, "Yeah, look, we're going to start with a train heist episode. That's going to be the first episode." And they're like, "Yeah, cool, sounds great." And they went away and they wrote and they created things. And when they came back, they said, "Oh, the train heist episode is actually episode 3 because it didn't really work. So we've got these other lead-in episodes." And the TV network were like, "No, we're starting with the train heist. That's what we said. So we will start with episode 3." So the very first episode.
Which would have worked 20 years previous, where nothing was serialized and you could watch any episode of anything and everything just goes back to the way it was at the end of the episode, right? Mm-hmm. But in a show like Firefly, or heck, if that had happened to Buffy a decade before, it wouldn't have made any sense. Same showrunner, but for some reason the network just didn't get that you can't tell the story out of order. What? Yep. Yeah, crazy.
And that's often what happens when producers and film companies they're money making machines, so they want to go with what they think is the best money maker. However, I think this is a very, very good. They're doing very good work here so far.
Yeah. Well, I think that's well said. This has been fun, Stuart. I'm so glad you decided to join me again and kind of go back memory road, talk about the series from all these different angles. It'll be fun to get together and do this again. If you're welcome to join me again, if you have other things you'd like to discuss. I know there's all the little nitty gritty nuances and details we could go into, from the power armor to the vaults to Nuka-Cola and Sunset Sarsaparilla showing up, all of those things. So maybe we could talk about that stuff in the future. But real quick, before we move on and wrap this up, thank you to everybody tuning in and listening again. Thank you for being here. I am doing a fun thing currently tomorrow, which isn't going to matter to you because you're going to be hearing this afterwards. But Lady Devon, who used to be community manager for Bethesda, for Fallout for Bethesda, and I will be doing a thing tomorrow at 2:00 in the afternoon. Maybe you'll have been there or not, where we will be reviewing people's thoughts and questions about the series and kind of answering those. That'll be an episode of the show that comes up a little bit later, so you can tune in for that. But Stuart, thanks for being here. And what do you have going on? What else do you have going on that you can tell people about?
All sorts of stuff. So I'm a writer mostly, and I make tabletop games. I've just finished a Kickstarter called the Abbott Trilogy, which is a collection of 3 system agnostic adventures that you can sort of use with any role-playing game system. So I'm working on that. I'm also working on a post-apocalyptic miniature war game, skirmish game, which is just something I'm doing for fun. That'll actually be the rules for that are going to be released for free. I'm playing around with podcasts again, just doing something I'm just being a bit creative and doing some solo RPGs, having some chats with people, doing some journalistic style things. So going out into the community and having conversations with people, just because I really like podcasting, and I haven't done any podcasting for, when did we stop doing
it's been a few years.
The Lorecast? 2 years ago now?
2.5 years? Something like that.
Mm-hmm. So that's all under the banner of Largshire Press for the books and Largshire Radio for the podcast, which is only 2 episodes now. And playing lots of games. I wanted to, I couldn't, I would be remiss if I didn't give you guys some suggestions for tabletop role-playing games if you are interested in playing tabletop Fallout-based role-playing games.
Your own Wasteland experiences.
Spot on. So obviously there's the official Fallout game. That's by Modifius, I think. It's a really good system, uses 2D20. Quite easy to pick up in my experience. Really looks good. Looks like a Fallout book. I would check that out. And there's also some pre-published adventures you can check out. If you are a solo RPGer or interested in that, I've made a game called Wretched Wasteland, which you can find on DriveThruRPG and itch.io. And that uses you have a deck of cards, some dice, and a Jenga tower, and you tell stories about someone trying to get across the wasteland. I would also check out Tiny Wasteland, which is a really fun rules-light wasteland adventure game. And then Nuked with an exclamation mark, Nuked. Mm-hmm. And that is a Fallout clone, rules-light, really fun, great artwork. And what else? Mutant Crawl Classics, which is a super silly gonzo, far-flung post-apocalyptic game. And then 2 more. Let's do 2 more. We'll do Apocalypse World, which is like a bit dark, gritty storytelling stuff. And then what's another one? Mutant Year Zero, which is there's a video game called Mutant Year Zero.
Yeah, I know that. I know of the video combat game.
Yeah, you play like anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah, you're like a pig guy and like some other stuff. Yeah.
There's an RPG for that, and it's cool, and it's got like a base building thing involved there as well. So there's some things you can check out. Tom, should I make like a thread thing in the Discord and chuck links to all that
actually
stuff
that's a great idea. On the Discord there's the Fallout Lorecast channel on the Discord, and Stuart will post some of the stuff there, and you can go check it out and have some fun playing.
I'll do a bunch of links,
RPGs.
stuff that I've talked about today, and some games, and you guys can check that out there if you'd like to.
Awesome. Stuart, this has been so fun. Thank you for being here. And it's been great catching
thanks,
up.
Tom.
We used to chat every week doing the show. And so it's
Constantly. It's so weird. It's like I've lost my friend.
I know.
We would be in communication every other day.
Yeah. And it's not like we can just drive over to each other's house.
Do this again.
Because we live on the other side of the planet.
Yeah, we're not catching up for coffees or anything, are we?
Nope.
I will hit you up again and we'll do another episode soon, I think, mate.
Awesome. Sounds good. And please check out all the other shows on robotsradio.net if you are into this show. If you want more of the stuff I do a Lord of the Rings Lorecast. I do an Elder Scrolls Lorecast if you like other Bethesda games. I do a variety of other shows as well. Plus, there's lots of great content from the other creators on the network. So I'm sure there's other content out there if you're looking for more stuff to listen to. But thanks for being here. And I'll be back next time with Devin talking about some of the reactions and responses from the Fallout fans out there. So get ready for that. All right. We'll see you next time. To plug into everything else we're doing, check out robotsradio.net. Reach out to me on Twitter at robots_radio. Check out the Robots Radio Rocket Club, where you can join me and a bunch of our other creators creating your podcast, starting a new podcast, or helping your current podcast grow. There's more information about that on robotsradio.net as well. And you can always talk with us and the entire community, over 2,000 people on the Robots Radio Discord. Come join us. We'd love to chat with you. See you guys next time.